Good morning and welcome back to It's Just a Thought. I'm Brother Justin Colquitt, pastor of First Baptist Wortham, and I'm glad you're with me this morning. I have a very important thing I want to discuss with you, and it's something that I deal with as much as anyone, so don't turn me off, but we're going to talk about forgiveness, and in particular, unforgiveness. Clinton Hawkins says unforgiveness is a state of resentment, bitterness, hatred, hostility, anger, fear, and stress towards someone who has done something wrong towards you. It even affects us physically. When the stress of unforgiveness takes over our life, we can have physical issues. Did you catch all those words in there? That resentment, bitterness, hatred, hostility, anger, and fear, those things will eat away at you. All because you don't want to forgive someone. Luke 7:40 through 47 speaks of the truth that those who have been forgiven much love much. And so there's something very unique about forgiving and very biblical about forgiving, but it's so very hard for us. I'm reminded of a passage of Scripture in Matthew chapter 18. Let me read something for you here. It's in verse 21. He says, Then Peter came and said to him, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Up to 7 times, he asked. Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Let me translate that for you. That's a lot. We are to continue to forgive those who hurt us and wrong us. He goes on to tell a story there in Matthew 18 of a king who wanted to settle his debts with all his slaves, and he brings in one man, and the man falls at his feet because he can't repay him. He has no way to repay this king the debt that he owes. And so the king forgives him of that debt. And the man, all excited, goes out, but he wants to find and settle his own debt. So he finds one of his brothers who owes him a debt, and he demands that he pays him. Well, this slave who has been forgiven so much turns to the one who owes him and says, I'm not going to forgive you that debt. You're going to pay it back. And something very strange happens here. You see, the word gets back to the king, and the king goes, that's not going to happen. And he pulls this slave back in, and not only throws him in jail, but it says in Scripture that he gave him over to the torturer until he repaid his complete debt. The one that he had been forgiven, now he has to repay, and he's going to be tortured for that time. Now listen, that's what unforgiveness does to us. It creates more pain for us than it does those who've hurt us. Can I leave you this morning with just a few thoughts on why we should forgive? Some reasons maybe that we should forgive. Here's one. Forgiveness sets you free to move on with your life. When you forgive somebody, you can now set that aside and quit letting it affect you, and you can move on. And that's what we all want to do, is just move on. It refuses to let the person who hurt you have any more power in your life. When you do not forgive someone and you are letting that eat you up with resentment and anger, understand this, you're not affecting them. You're only affecting yourself, and it's keeping you in bondage. And so, set that aside. Don't let them have power over your life. It opens your relationship up with God. It keeps you from becoming bitter and thus protects those around you. Your anger that's affecting you also affects those around you because of your attitude. So keep that in mind. It keeps you from becoming like the person who hurt you. You don't want to become the person who hurt you. Forgive that person. Move on. Allow God to begin to heal you and work through you. Unforgiveness doesn't hurt the perpetrator at all. It only hurts you. We've talked about that a couple times already. And by the way, Scripture commands it. As Jesus said, we are to forgive up to 70 times 7. So my question to you this morning is, are you holding on to unforgiveness? Are you holding on to something that someone's done to you and you need to let it go this morning? My prayer is that you will, because I promise you it will eat you up inside. It's just a thought.